What if everything you've been told about breathing was just the surface? We've been taught that breath is for survival. Inhale oxygen, exhale carbon dioxide, a biological exchange. But ancient cultures believed something far deeper. Breath is the bridge between the physical and the unseen. Not just air, but access. Not just survival, but expansion. And once you learn to breathe consciously, the world around you doesn't change. You do. There are patterns hidden within breath that modern science has only just begun to glimpse. In ancient temples, breath was sacred. It was ritual. It was a coded key to dimensions of self we no longer remember how to reach. These teachings weren't lost. They were hidden. Because breath isn't just involuntary. It's programmable. And certain breath patterns don't just calm your nervous system. They shift your frequency, alter your perception, and when done correctly, open doors you didn't know existed. Have you ever noticed your breath change before a moment of intuition? Or how it pauses during awe, or holds during fear? That's no accident. Your breath has always been listening. What if, for the first time, you listened back? Some breath sequences practiced by ancient mystics weren't designed for the body. They were designed for the soul. This video is a doorway, and you found it. Watch closely. You may not breathe the same way again. In ancient Egypt, initiates of mystery schools were not first taught language or symbols or even sacred texts. They were taught to breathe with precision. Certain inhalation retention patterns were believed to activate dormant centers in the body, not metaphorically, literally, because breath, when harnessed deliberately, alters electromagnetic resonance. The ancients didn't have MRI machines, but they understood energy fields, the aura, the etheric body, the subtle layers of self. Breathwork was how they navigated between them. One particular method, a 3-part cycle of inhale, hold, release, was said to synchronize the pineal gland and the vagus nerve, a balance point between intuition and physical sensation. When practiced with intention, time began to feel less linear, visuals sharpened, emotional wounds surfaced, not to haunt, but to be alchemized. And here's the secret. You don't need a temple to access this. Your body is the temple. Your breath is the ritual. Most people go their entire lives never consciously inhaling. They consume air like a habit, never like a portal. And that's exactly why they never break through the noise. But the moment you begin to guide your breath, something shifts. Not immediately, but undeniably. Feel it now, this moment. Inhale slowly, hold, then exhale fully. Even this simple pattern, done with awareness, alters your state. And if you've felt that, even subtly, leave a word below. Just one. Others will feel it too. That's how we remember. Together. There's a forgotten breath pattern, once used by Himalayan monks, designed not for calm, but for expansion. 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out, 4 counts empty. Not just rhythm, geometry. It mirrors the 4 elements. the four cardinal directions, the four chambers of the heart. Breath was never random. It was always a sacred architecture, and when you follow these sequences with intention, you're not just breathing, you're activating. You're tuning the instrument of your own awareness. This is where most people stop, because the effects aren't always gentle. With deeper breath comes deeper feeling. Memories surface. Emotions long buried find air again. And that's not dysfunction, it's purification. The ancients called this breathing the soul clean. The veil between dimensions isn't in the sky. It's not in sacred sites. It's in your perception, your ability to feel without flinching. And breath is how you widen that perception, one pulse at a time. Some say it takes years to access altered states, but the truth, just one breath, done fully, can change your state instantly. The challenge isn't access, it's consistency. And if you've ever felt a stillness come over you in the middle of chaos, or clarity emerge from nowhere, it wasn't random. It was your breath opening a door you've walked past 1,000 times. Pause. Inhale with presence. Exhale with gratitude. And let the space between breaths speak to you. Modern neuroscience now confirms what ancient sages always knew. Your breath controls your brainwaves. Slow it, and you shift into theta, the brain state of intuition, memory, and dreams. Breathe deeper, and gamma waves begin to flicker. Bursts of insight, heightened awareness, even transcendence. But here's what they rarely tell you. It's not the breath alone that creates the shift. It's the presence behind the breath. That's the real doorway. Conscious breathwork isn't about volume. It's about permission, giving your awareness space to stretch. When you do, you begin to feel things you once ignored. The hum in your fingertips, the rhythm of your heartbeat, the silence behind every sound. And it's in that silence that the real work begins. Some practitioners report visions, not dreams, but clear symbols, geometries, colors, faces. Others feel as though time slows or dissolves entirely, but nearly all describe the same phenomenon, a feeling of coming home to a version of themselves they'd forgotten. This is the power of breath when used as a spiritual technology, not a supplement, not a tool, a gateway. And the most astonishing part, you've had the key since birth. So if you're still here, reading these words, maybe something in you already knew that. Maybe you've been remembering as you read. If that's true, leave a message below, one you would have needed to read before you started this journey. Someone else might be waiting for it now. In the stillness after breath, there's a space that feels both empty and infinite. That pause, subtle and often overlooked, is where the threshold lies. Not between inhale and exhale, but between what you know and what you've forgotten. Breath holds memory, not just of this life, but of others. Cellular memory, ancestral echoes. And when breath becomes intentional, it begins to unlock that vault. Ancient shamans believed breath could retrieve soul fragments, pieces of self lost through trauma, neglect, or forgetting. With each cycle, with each pulse of oxygen meeting spirit, Those fragments stir, they whisper, they want to return. That sensation you feel when you breathe deeply and tears rise, even if you're not sad, is that remembering. The body knows what the mind forgot. This is not just spiritual metaphor. Heart rate variability, vagus nerve toning, and breath-linked neuroplasticity prove that breath can alter the architecture of experience. But modern language isn't enough to explain what you'll feel, because breathwork doesn't give you answers. It dissolves the questions. So if something inside you has shifted, even slightly, trust it. Don't chase the sensation. Let it anchor. Let it root. And if you're reading this in silence, don't scroll yet. Instead, breathe in once more. Hold it. Then send a small message into the comment field, not for attention, but to echo what you felt. That's how resonance spreads. There is an ancient belief that breath is the only practice that follows us from birth to death. Before we even speak, before our names are given, we breathe. And in our final moment, when all stories fall silent, it's the last thing we surrender. Which is why mystics across every lineage viewed breath as the soul's companion, not just a function, but a witness. As you deepen into this journey, you may start to notice strange effects. Colors may seem more vivid, time may bend, a sense of déjà vu or deep familiarity with places you've never been. That isn't fantasy. That's your nervous system shifting from reaction to revelation. Because when breath slows, the default mode network, the part of the brain that maintains ego and identity, softens. And what emerges is the vastness underneath, the unfiltered self. Not the self defined by memory, but the one you feel in dreams, wordless, timeless, whole. There's power in repetition, the same pattern of inhale, hold, exhale, done day after day, doesn't just regulate, it reprograms. It teaches the body safety, which opens the door to inner travel. And you don't need to understand how it works, you only need to feel it. Still skeptical? Good. Doubt sharpens presence, but don't leave without trying. Take a breath now, fully in, hold, exhale gently, notice what's beneath your thoughts. Then, leave a word, not to prove anything, but to mark this moment. Someone scrolling below may find the word they didn't know they needed. And if even one person breathes differently after that, you've already made the shift. Somewhere between your ribs and your spine is a silence that's never been broken. It's not emptiness, it's presence. And breath, when done with reverence, becomes the only language that silence understands. The reason most people don't experience transformation through breath isn't lack of technique, it's lack of trust. We live in a world obsessed with doing, but breathwork asks you to stop doing, to become, to listen. That's why it's so confronting, because as the breath deepens, the mind loses grip. Control softens, and what rises is raw, unfiltered you. This is where the real initiation begins. Not every session will bring visions. Sometimes all you'll feel is resistance, tightness, a refusal to soften. But even that is part of the work, because breath doesn't remove your blocks, it reveals them, and what's revealed can be released. Each breath you've taken while watching this has shaped your state. Right now, you may feel calmer or more open, or maybe you're finally sensing something you can't name, and that's perfect. Because what we can't name is often the gateway to what we're truly seeking. If this spoke to you, if something inside stirred or stretched, share this video. Not for algorithm, but for alignment. Maybe someone you know is quietly suffocating in their own life, and this breath, this one, could be the beginning of their return. Let them find it through you. There comes a moment, sometimes quiet, sometimes crashing, when the breath no longer feels like yours. It feels cosmic, like you're being breathed, like the air entering your lungs is the same air that moved through temples, pyramids, forests, across generations. That's not poetry, that's remembrance. You are not breathing to relax. You are breathing to return to the part of you untouched by noise, unscarred by time, unshaken by identity. In this place, breath doesn't lead. It follows something deeper, a pulse, a knowing. And if you listen closely, it's been with you since your first inhale. Most people will never access this space, not because they can't, but because they won't sit long enough in the discomfort of stillness. But you did. You stayed. You followed the breath into its silence. And now, you stand at the edge, not of a cliff, but of your own expansion. What comes next isn't in this video. It's in your practice, your presence, your choice. So here's the final breath. Inhale, deeper, hold. Feel the life you've always been too distracted to notice. Exhale, as if letting go of every belief that's kept you small. If this journey opened something in you, share it. If you stayed through every pulse, say so. Not for us, for yourself, for others like you, still searching, still forgetting. And if just one word of this found you in the right moment, then none of it was random. You were meant to breathe this. You were meant to remember.